Before we begin, I want you to picture something. Imagine giving your entire life to someone, only to end up being treated like a burden. Imagine pouring in your time, your energy, your love, everything you have just to be told that you're in the way. This isn't a made-up story. This is my life, my truth. A truth I stayed quiet about for far too long. If you've ever felt unappreciated, unseen, or taken for granted, stay with me because this isn't just my story, it might be yours too. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. My name is Margaret Turner. I live in a quiet neighborhood just outside Portland, Oregon. I never imagined I'd be sharing my life with strangers like this. But I've learned something important. Silence is where resentment grows. And I've been silent for too long. Everything changed after I left my husband. I was in my late 40s then. Years of his anger, manipulation, and quiet cruelty had worn me down. Leaving almost broke me, but I did it anyway. I did it for my own sanity and for my daughter, Emily. Emily was in her early 20s at the time, finishing college, full of hope and potential. I thought she'd understand. I thought she'd be proud of me. Instead, she grew distant, cold. She said I'd given up on our family, that I'd destroyed everything. She blamed me. Still, I stayed close. She married young and had children quickly. Her job demanded long hours and her marriage didn't survive the pressure. Suddenly, she was a single mother with 2 small children, and I was there, always there. I moved into the guest house behind her home. I cooked, I cleaned, I changed diapers. I drove the kids to school, to soccer practice, to birthday parties. I sat through fevers, science projects, first heartbreaks, and sleepless nights filled with nightmares. I carried it all quietly, never asking for much. I believed that's what love was. You give, you hold everything together, you show up. But Emily never softened. If anything, she grew harder with time. She snapped at me in front of the children, rolled her eyes, told me I was too involved, too old-fashioned, too much. You baby them. She'd say, they'll never grow up right with you hovering like that. Sometimes I'd overhear her laughing on the phone with friends. My mom. She's basically free childcare with opinions. What can I do? I'd stand there in the kitchen, smiling quietly to myself, pretending it didn't hurt, but it did. Oh, it did. What kept me going were my grandchildren. They clung to me like I was their anchor. They ran into my arms after school, curled up beside me on the couch. As they grew older, they trusted me with everything: school worries, crushes, arguments with their mother. I knew their hearts. I was their safe place. And yet, I couldn't ignore the way Emily looked at me. Like I was temporary, like I was just a shadow in the background of her life, not a mother, not a woman with a past, just someone who cooked, cleaned, and made sure her world didn't fall apart. I started to wonder if she ever truly saw me at all. Then came the day that changed everything. It began with exhaustion, not the kind you sleep off, but a deep, bone-heavy fatigue that wouldn't go away. I couldn't walk from the kitchen to the porch without stopping to sit down. I was losing weight. My hands shook. The doctor ordered tests, then more tests, then he sat me down, wearing that look doctors use when they're about to change your life. Cancer, aggressive. I went home that day carrying a silence heavier than anything I'd ever known. I didn't know how to tell Emily. Not because I was afraid of the illness, but because I was afraid of her reaction. What if she saw this as just another inconvenience? I waited 3 days. When I finally told her, she barely looked up from her phone. She blinked once and said, "Oh, well, we'll figure something out." Her voice was flat, distant. Later that week, she mentioned it casually, almost as an afterthought. "You should probably hire a nurse, Mom. I really don't have time for all that." That was the moment I stopped pretending. She didn't ask how I felt. She didn't offer to take me to appointments. No comfort, no concern, just hire a nurse. Like I was someone else's responsibility. Now, so I did. I picked up the phone that day, my heart still aching, and made a decision in silence. I didn't realize it then, but that single call would become the first step toward everything that followed. The nurse arrived on a Wednesday morning. Her name was Lisa Coleman, 38 years old. Short chestnut hair and kind eyes that looked like they'd seen more than their share of life. She carried a quiet strength about her, the kind that doesn't ask for attention, yet somehow fills the room anyway. Emily wasn't home when Lisa arrived. It was just me, sitting on the porch, wrapped in a shawl, pretending the crisp Oregon air wasn't cutting straight through my bones. Lisa walked up with a clipboard and a smile that didn't feel practiced or forced, nothing like the ones I'd grown used to. "Mrs. Turner," she asked. "Margaret." I corrected gently, "Just Margaret." She nodded. And from the moment she stepped inside, something shifted. There was no awkwardness, no hesitation. She wasn't intrusive or overly cheerful. She simply saw me not as a patient, not as a problem to manage, but as a woman who needed a little help. That first week was simple enough: medication schedules, meal preparation, light cleaning, doctor's appointments. But Lisa did more than just her job. She noticed things. She caught my hands trembling before I even realized they were shaking. She brought me warm socks without being asked. She refilled the bird feeder because she thought the view might lift my spirits. Small things, thoughtful things, things Emily hadn't done in years. And it wasn't only what Lisa did, it was how she spoke to me, like I mattered. Like my thoughts weren't a burden or an inconvenience. After lunch, we'd sit on the porch together. I told her about the garden I used to keep, back before my body turned against me. She listened, truly listened, and then said one day, "You should tell me which flowers to plant. I've got the hands. You've got the vision." I realized then that I hadn't smiled like that in a very long time. When Emily stopped by, and I used the word "see" generously, because most of the time she just stood in the doorway scrolling through her phone. She didn't ask how I was feeling. Her eyes moved around the house instead, tracking what Lisa was doing or not doing. "How's the nurse?" she asked one afternoon, sipping her iced coffee like it was the only thing that mattered. "She has a name," I said. Emily raised an eyebrow. "Okay, how's Lisa?" "She's wonderful," I replied, maybe more firmly than I meant to. "She takes good care of me." Emily didn't say anything. She pressed her lips together, nodded once, and left a few minutes later. No hug, no questions about my medication, nothing. Around that time, I started noticing a change in myself. The more care Lisa showed me, the more I realized how little care I had allowed myself to receive over the years. Not just during my illness, but long before that, during my marriage, after the divorce, and even with Emily, especially with Emily. One evening, as I waited for the results of another scan, Lisa sat beside me. I was quiet, lost in my thoughts, spiraling. After a moment, she said softly, "You've carried a lot of people for a long time, haven't you?" I looked at her, surprised. "You don't have to keep holding everyone up," she continued. "Let someone hold you for once." That night, I cried, not quiet tears but deep, aching sobs. The kind you save for moments when you think no one is listening, except someone was listening. And she didn't look away. Strangely enough, after that, Emily began visiting more often. But she didn't bring warmth with her. She brought tension, sharp energy, restlessness. It felt like she was watching, waiting, measuring. She asked more questions, but none of them were about me. "How many hours does Lisa work? Does she cook for you too? Do you really need someone here every day?" It wasn't concern, it was control, possession. Like she was trying to reclaim space in a house she had emotionally abandoned long ago. One night, after Emily left abruptly, Lisa turned to me and asked, "Does she always talk to you like that?" And for the first time in my life, I said, "Yes," and I admitted something else too without words. I let her. The truth settled between us like a heavy fog. That night, alone in my room, I thought about everything I'd given over the years. My time, my love, my youth, and how invisible I'd become in the process. I looked at the framed photos of my grandchildren on the shelf, then at a picture of Emily from her wedding. I used to think that photo was beautiful. Now, all I saw was distance. The next morning, I called my lawyer. It was time to make a change, quietly, deliberately. I had nothing left to prove. But even then, I still had something left to protect. The day I met with the lawyer, the air itself felt different. My joints still ached. The exhaustion from the night before hadn't lifted. But beneath all of that, something unfamiliar was stirring, something I hadn't felt in years. Control. I made the call early that morning while Lisa was out picking up my medication. It was the same lawyer who had handled my divorce decades earlier. He sounded surprised to hear my voice, but kind. We arranged a private meeting at his office for the following afternoon. I didn't tell Emily. When Lisa drove me there, she didn't ask why or press for details. She adjusted the seat warmer, handed me my scarf, and simply said, "Call if you need me." Before walking into the building, I looked back at her. I wanted to thank her, but the words caught in my throat. I think she understood. Sitting across from Mr. Holloway felt surreal. We were both older now. His hair had gone gray. I'd lost weight. But his calm, steady presence was the same. As he flipped through old paperwork, he looked up and said, "You never updated your will after your divorce, Margaret." I nodded. "I know, that's why I'm here." When I told him what I wanted, he hesitated. "Are you sure?" he asked gently. "This isn't a small change, I'm sure," I said, and the firmness in my voice surprised even me. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to hurt Emily. But I could no longer pretend our relationship was anything other than what it had become, a transaction. And now that I was finally being cared for with real compassion, I could see it clearly. The new will named my grandchildren as equal beneficiaries. I set up education trusts for them. And I added Lisa not because I owed her anything, but because she deserved it. She treated me with dignity when no one else did. I signed the papers. They were sealed away. And when I walked out of that office, I felt a strange, unexpected peace. It didn't last long. 2 days later, Emily showed up unannounced. She walked in like she still lived there. barely acknowledging Lisa as she passed her in the hallway. I was in the kitchen trying to eat something small. My appetite hadn't been much lately. Emily tossed her purse onto the counter and leaned against the refrigerator. So, she said, folding her arms. You've been spending a lot of time with the nurse. I looked at her. Her name is Lisa, right? Lisa, her voice was sharp, clipped. The kid said she's been driving them to school, she offered. I replied carefully. It helps me and they like her. Emily let out a humorless laugh. Of course they do. She's probably spoiling them to get on your good side. I stared at my daughter, unsure whether I was shocked or just too tired to be shocked anymore. Why would she need to get on my good side? I asked. Emily hesitated. I don't know. People have motives. You're not naive, are you, Mom? That word naive, after everything. After decades of holding her life together with my bare hands. After cleaning up her messes, sacrificing myself quietly over and over again, she called me naive. I stood slowly, bracing myself against the edge of the table. Lisa hasn't asked me for a single thing, Emily. Not once. And in case you haven't noticed, she's the only person here who treats me like I matter. That landed. I saw it in her eyes, but she covered it quickly with a scoff. Whatever, she said. Just don't be stupid about your money. She left 5 minutes later. No goodbye. No pause. I sat there in the silence for a long time, staring at the front door she'd slammed shut. That evening, I found Lisa in the laundry room folding towels. She looked up at me with those steady, knowing eyes. Rough day? She asked. I nodded. They've all been rough lately. But this one left a mark. Lisa didn't press. She didn't fill the space with words. She just nodded and kept folding. And for the first time in years, I felt truly seen. More than that, I felt worthy of being seen. That was when I understood something important. Love isn't only about blood. It's about presence, respect, kindness, and sometimes, the people who give you those things aren't the ones who share your DNA. They're the ones who walk in when everyone else walks out. The days passed. And with each one, I felt both stronger and weaker at the same time. Stronger in my resolve. Weaker in my body. The treatments were brutal. I sat through the treatments in silence, watching the fur drip into my veins, feeling like it was taking pieces of me away instead of healing anything. My hair thinned. My appetite vanished. Even the mirror stopped feeling familiar. I no longer recognized the woman staring back at me. But through all of it, Lisa stayed. She was there when the nausea hit. She was there the morning my legs gave out and I collapsed in the hallway. She literally caught me and didn't let me fall. She stayed up late making bone broth from scratch when she learned it was the only thing I could keep down. She didn't just care for me. She cared about me. Emily, on the other hand, stopped by once every few days. Sometimes she brought the kids. Sometimes she didn't. She always hovered near the door like she had somewhere more important to be. Always checking her phone. Always distracted. Every visit felt like an obligation she couldn't wait to get over with. One afternoon, after a particularly brutal treatment, I was lying on the couch with a blanket pulled up to my chin. Lisa sat nearby, quietly reading. Emily came in unannounced, as usual, sunglasses still on, coffee in hand. She barely looked at me. Do you really need her here every day? She asked, nodding toward Lisa. Lisa didn't flinch. She kept reading. Yes, I said simply. Emily snorted. You're being dramatic. I mean, I know you're sick, but she's not family, Mom. That word again, family. I turned my head slowly toward her. My voice came out softer than I expected, but sharper than I meant. No, she's not, I said. She's something better. She's present. Emily rolled her eyes and started pacing the room. This is ridiculous. You act like I've never been here for you. You haven't, I said, and the words surprised even me. She froze mid-step. Her mouth opened, then closed, like she wanted to argue but couldn't find the words. I didn't say anything else. I didn't need to. She left a few minutes later, muttering something about having to pick up the kids. After she was gone, Lisa looked up from her book. You okay? She asked softly. No, I whispered. But I will be. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of the oxygen machine. I thought about everything I'd swallowed over the years. Every time I put Emily's needs ahead of my own. Every birthday, breakup, meltdown, every moment when I dropped everything just to be there. And now, when I was asking for one thing, support, she couldn't give it. She didn't even try. That's when it finally hit me. This wasn't about her being busy, or overwhelmed, or tired. It was about choice. And over again, she had chosen distance. The next morning, Lisa brought me breakfast on a tray: toast, eggs, and sliced strawberries. I hadn't asked for strawberries. She just remembered I liked them. Thank you, I murmured, taking the tray with trembling hands. She smiled. It's what you deserve. That simple sentence stayed with me all day. What you deserve, not guilt, not blame, not cold visits or eye rolls. Not being treated like a burden for the first time in my life. I let that thought bloom without shame. I deserved more. And I wasn't afraid to claim it. Lisa became my shadow, but in the best way. She moved through the house with quiet ease. Never overbearing. Never intrusive. Just steady, constant. And it was that consistency that began healing something deeper inside me, something I hadn't even realized was broken. She didn't pry, but she noticed. The way I winced when I stood. The way I rubbed my temples when a memory hurt too much. The way my gaze lingered a second too long at the window. When my grandchildren's laughter drifted faintly from the backyard, one afternoon, I sat in the garden with a blanket across my lap. It was chilly for spring, but I liked it. The air made me feel awake. Lisa came out with 2 cups of tea and handed me one before sitting beside me. "You always look out this window," she said gently. "What are you thinking about?" I didn't answer right away. I watched a blue jay hop along the fence, its feathers flashing like silk in the breeze. "I think about how much I've given," I said quietly. "And how little I've ever asked for." Lisa didn't respond. She just sipped her tea and waited. "I raised Emily," I continued. "I held her when she was sick. When she cried over boys. When her marriage ended, I stayed up all night baking cupcakes for my grandchildren's birthdays. I canceled plans. Skipped holidays. Ignored my own health just to keep Emily's life running smoothly, and she doesn't see it." Lisa said softly. I nodded. "Worse, she sees it and still treats me like I'm disposable." We sat in silence for a long moment. It wasn't awkward. It was heavy, full, like the air itself had weight. Then Lisa said something I'll never forget. "Sometimes the people we give the most to are the ones who think we owe it to them." The truth of it stung, but it also soothed something raw inside me. She didn't just understand my situation. She understood me. That evening, I sat alone in the den, staring at the old filing cabinet where I kept my important papers, insurance documents, property deeds, medical directives, and my will. I hadn't touched it since my divorce. Everything still listed Emily as my sole heir. Back then, it made sense. She was my only child. My legacy. But now, she wasn't living like a daughter. She wasn't showing up like family. I thought about my grandchildren, sweet, curious, kind-hearted kids. They'd been shaped more by my love than by Emily's presence. I thought about Lisa, how quickly she'd become more than a nurse, a friend, a caretaker, a quiet protector. I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I called Mr. Holloway again. We met 2 days later. I told him clearly and without hesitation that I wanted to revise everything. My grandchildren, I said, they get equal shares. And Lisa, she gets the house and this savings account. He raised an eyebrow. "Your daughter gets nothing?" "Yes," I said. "Nothing." He paused, then nodded slowly. "Understood." I signed the papers with a hand that shook, not from doubt, but from the weight of the decision. When it was done, I felt lighter, freer. Like I'd taken back something I didn't even realize was mine. That evening, Lisa found me sitting on the porch again. "You've been quiet today," she said. "I made a decision." I replied. "A big one." She looked concerned but didn't press. "I just realized," I continued, "that I've spent my whole life trying to prove my worth to people who never deserved it." Lisa placed a warm hand over mine. "Then maybe it's time you stop proving," she said gently, "and start living." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in years, something settled inside me. Not peace. Not yet. Purpose. But calm never lasts, does it? A few days after I signed the new will, I overheard a conversation between Emily and one of the kids. She'd stopped by unannounced again, claiming she just wanted to check in, though she spent most of her time scrolling through her phone and asking questions that weren't really questions. "Has the nurse been sleeping here?" she asked my grandson, thinking I wasn't listening. I was standing in the hallway, out of sight. But her voice carried. "Does she use Nana's car? What about the credit cards? Has she bought anything for herself?" My blood turned cold. This wasn't concern. This wasn't worry. It was an investigation. I stepped into the room slowly. "Emily, can I speak with you for a moment?" She looked startled, then followed me into the kitchen. "What is it?" she asked, arms crossed. I looked her straight in the eyes. "Why are you interrogating my grandchildren about Lisa?" Her expression flickered, guilt, irritation, then defensiveness. "Always defensiveness." "I'm just trying to protect you," she said. "You're sick, Mom. People like her take advantage of people like you." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I spoke calmly, evenly, like I was reading from a recipe card. "Lisa has shown me more respect, more kindness, and more care in 1 month than you have in 10 years. Emily scoffed. "She's being paid, and you?" I asked. "What's your excuse?" She went silent. Then she said the words that sealed everything for me. "You're being stupid, Mom. You don't even know this woman. You're just lonely." That word, stupid. I stood up slowly, my legs trembling. Not from weakness. From a lifetime of contained rage. I may be sick, I said, but I'm not stupid. And I'm not lonely. I've just stopped confusing proximity with love. Her face went blank. I knew in that moment she felt it, the shift. The loss of control she'd always assumed she had, emotional, financial, moral. She left without another word, her heels clicking down the hallway like gunshots. Later that night, I sat at the dining table with Lisa and told her everything. She listened without interrupting, her expression calm but clearly concerned. Do you want me to step away for a while? She asked gently. Give things some space? No, I said without hesitation. This is my home. You're not the problem. We sat quietly for a moment. Then I reached for her hand and squeezed it. I need you here. Her eyes softened. Then I'm here. The following week passed in uneasy quiet. Emily didn't come by. The kids still visited after school, bright, sweet, loving, but I sensed something different in their voices. A hesitation. A confusion. Emily had said something to them. I didn't know what, but I could feel it. Then one afternoon, I received a call from Mr. Holloway. Your daughter came to my office, he said. My stomach dropped. She asked about your will. Pressed for information. Of course, I couldn't disclose anything, but she's suspicious. And she's angry. I thanked him, hung up, and sat there in silence for nearly an hour. Emily knew. Or at least she suspected. That evening, as the sun sank behind the trees and the sky burned gold, I walked into the garden and stood barefoot in the grass. The air was cool, the wind sharp, but I felt alive. This was never about money. It never had been. It was about legacy. About what we leave behind, not in accounts or deeds, but in people, in love, in memory. And I had finally decided my legacy would not be silence, not anymore. It happened the next morning. The knock at the door wasn't frantic. It was sharp, controlled, the kind of knock that says, I'm not here to be polite. Lisa opened the door. I was finishing my tea when Emily's voice cut through the house. I want to talk to my mother alone. Lisa didn't flinch. She looked back at me, waiting. I gave a small nod and she stepped aside, quiet, steady, present. Always present. Emily stormed into the living room like she still owned it. Her eyes were wild, her face tight. I want the truth, she said. I didn't bother pretending not to know what she meant. I spoke to your lawyer, she continued. He didn't tell me anything, but he didn't have to. I can feel it. I set my cup down gently. And what do you feel, Emily? She stared at me. That you're giving everything to her. To Lisa, a stranger. Instead of your own daughter. There it was. Not fear, not sadness. Not regret. Entitlement. I looked at her for a long time. My silence made her shift uncomfortably. She always hated when I didn't respond. I gave you everything I had. I said finally, my time, my energy, my life. And you gave me distance, blame, silence. I didn't. Yes, I interrupted calmly but firmly. You did. And when I got sick, you didn't ask how to help. You asked how to delegate. Her arms crossed over her chest. Defensive, always defensive. I have kids, mom, a career. I can't just drop everything. I did, I said. I dropped everything for you again and again for years. And now that I need someone, you're angry that it isn't you. She looked away, biting her lip. Then she snapped back. She's manipulating you. She's caring for me, I replied. And there's a difference. Emily's voice rose. You're seriously leaving her everything after all I've done for you? I stood slowly. My body hurt. My legs trembled. But I stood anyway. You never asked what I needed, not once. You only cared about what you thought you were owed. Tears filled her eyes, but they weren't tears of sorrow. They were rage, disbelief. She's not family. She shouted. No, I said quietly. She's better. That broke her. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just froze. Then she whispered something I wish I could forget. You'll regret this. She turned and walked out. The door slammed behind her. And for the first time in a very long time I didn't flinch. A few minutes later, Lisa came in. Silent as always. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't need to. She just sat beside me. I think she hates me now, I said. She doesn't hate you. Lisa replied gently. She hates that you're not under her control anymore. I looked down at my hands. They used to be strong hands that raised a child, ran a household, carried far too much. Now they trembled in stillness. She always said I was the strong one. I whispered. You are. Lisa said. You just forgot that strength can say no, too. That night, I lay in bed replaying everything, all the years I swallowed pain. I lay there thinking about all the ways I had justified her behavior over the years. All the times I told myself she'd grow out of it or eventually grow into love. But some people don't grow into love. They grow into need. And when they don't get what they want, they punish. And now she couldn't punish me anymore. I had chosen differently. And that choice was already changing everything. After that day, something inside the house shifted. The silence between Emily and me was no longer the kind that waited to be broken. It was the kind that built walls, cold, tall, deliberate walls. She stopped visiting altogether for days. No calls, no texts. Just quiet, but it wasn't peaceful because outside that silence, she was busy. Lisa started hearing whispers from the neighbors. Is it true that woman is living there full-time now? I heard Margaret changed her will. Gave everything to the nurse, that poor daughter, after everything she did for her mother. The pity wasn't for me. It was for Emily. She was painting herself as the abandoned daughter. The victim. And Lisa became the villain. The home wrecker. The manipulator. The gold digger. I told Lisa to ignore it, but I could see how it wore on her. She stopped spending time in the front yard. She stopped chatting with the mailman. One night, I found her crying quietly in the laundry room, wiping her eyes with the sleeve of her hoodie. This is my mess. I told her no. She said barely above a whisper. I'm the one being accused. And I can't even defend myself. I placed a hand on her shoulder. You don't have to. I know the truth, but the damage had already begun seeping into the corners of the house. Even the kids, my grandchildren, started pulling away. Not abruptly. Not cruelly. Just a hesitation. A heaviness in their eyes. They visited less. They stopped asking Lisa for help with homework or snacks. One evening, my oldest grandson sat beside me on the porch. Unusually quiet. Mom says you're mad at her, he mumbled. My heart broke. I'm not mad. I said gently. I'm just tired of pretending things are okay when they're not. He stared down at his shoes. She says Lisa's stealing our house. That hurt more than any insult ever had. Lisa came out with a pitcher of lemonade, saw the tension and paused. I shook my head slightly and she retreated without a word. I turned back to him. Lisa isn't stealing anything. She's taking care of me. He didn't reply. He just nodded, uncomfortable, and changed the subject. After he left, I sat there in the dark for a long time. Eventually, Lisa came back and sat beside me. We watched the porch lights down the street flicker on, one by one. I should leave, she said finally. I turned to her, stunned. What? No, if I go, maybe she'll back off, Lisa said quietly. Maybe the kids will come around again. I shook my head. No, you don't get punished for being kind. She looked at me with tired eyes. But I am, and that's when I understood Emily's war wasn't just with me. It was with anyone who gave me the love she refused to offer. She couldn't stand seeing someone else do what she wouldn't. Couldn't stand that I had chosen someone else not out of spite, but out of need. That week, Lisa grew quieter. Still caring. Still gentle. Still there. But I could feel her pulling inward, protecting her heart. And I hated that. Emily didn't just want to punish me. She wanted to erase Lisa from my life, but I had made my choice. And now I had to protect it. The moment everything cracked open didn't come with shouting or slammed doors. It came with footsteps. Heavy, fast, intentional. I was in the living room, half asleep under a blanket when the front door flew open. Lisa had stepped out just minutes earlier to run an errand, so at first I thought it was her. Then I heard the voice. Where is she? Emily called out, sharp and cold, before I could even sit up fully. She was already in the room, face flushed, eyes wild. Emily, what are you doing? I asked. She ignored me. Where is she? She demanded again, louder. Where's Lisa? She's not here right now, I said, forcing myself upright. My heart was already racing. Emily began pacing. Good, because I swear to God, Mom, if I see her in my house again, I'll cut her off. This is not your house. The words hung in the air like smoke. She stopped. What did you just say? I steadied my breath. My body trembled and everything I had swallowed for years rose to the surface. Not just from the illness, but from something older, deeper. Rage and pain layered over years of swallowing every slide, every cold shoulder, every eye roll. It was all boiling up now. You don't live here, I said, my voice calm. You don't get to barge in. And you don't get to threaten anyone. I'm not threatening her, she hissed. I'm protecting you. From who? I asked. From the only person who hasn't abandoned me in months. She stared at me, her eyes narrowing. She's using you. I stood, my knees nearly buckling under the weight of the moment. No, Emily, she's caring for me. Something you stopped doing a long time ago. That landed. She took a step back, as if I'd slapped her. I kept my voice low but steady. You come in like a storm. You throw accusations, spread lies, and now you want to drive out the person who saved me. She's not family, Mom. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to, neither are you anymore. That broke her, her face crumpled, lips trembling. Eyes filling with tears she refused to let fall. You don't mean that, she whispered. I didn't answer. Because part of me did. She looked around the room like she was seeing it for the first time, the photos of the grandkids on the shelves. The quilt Lisa brought home from the thrift store because it felt cozy. The neatly stacked medical forms by the front door. This wasn't her space anymore. It hadn't been for a long time. She turned toward the door, her voice sharp and brittle. You're going to regret this. I didn't stop her. I didn't follow. I just sank back onto the couch and let the silence wrap around me like a second skin. Lisa came home a few minutes later. At first, I said nothing. She set down the groceries, looked at me, and knew Emily had been there. I nodded. Lisa sighed, her shoulders slumping. I think I should stay somewhere else for a while. I looked up at her, tired but clear. No, she's the one who needs to leave. Not you. That night, I lay awake again, but not from fear or regret. For the first time in decades, I had drawn a line. And I wasn't stepping back. I thought Emily had reached her limit. That after our last confrontation, she'd retreat. Maybe reflect. I was wrong. She didn't retreat. She retaliated. It began quietly. A letter arrived from a local probate attorney, an official request to verify the validity of my new will. A few days later, another notice followed. She had filed a petition claiming I'd been unduly influenced while drafting it. Lisa found the paperwork first. She brought it inside, her face pale, hands shaking. Did you know about this? I didn't, but I wasn't surprised. Emily wasn't just hurt. She was humiliated. And in her world, humiliation demanded action. It didn't matter that Lisa had never asked me for a cent. It didn't matter that my mind was sharp and my decisions my own. None of that mattered to someone like her, someone who believed love was earned through proximity, not presence. I called my lawyer immediately. She doesn't have a case, he told me. You were of sound mind. There's no evidence of coercion. But it will get messy. That word hung in the air for days. Emily didn't stop there. She contacted my siblings, people she hadn't spoken to in years, telling them I was being manipulated. She talked to neighbors. She even tried to convince my doctor to sign a statement questioning my capacity. He refused. Thank God. Still, the damage spread. People looked at me differently at the pharmacy. I heard whispers in the grocery store. Even the nurse at my oncology clinic hesitated when she asked, "Do you have family supporting you through this?" Through it all, Lisa stayed. She never asked me to defend her. Never complained. She just kept showing up, refilling my pill organizer, cooking bland meals, sitting beside me during the worst nights when the nausea came in waves. One morning, I found her outside scrubbing the front porch in silence. Her shoulders were tight, her movements sharp. I stepped out, clutching my robe. You okay? She hesitated, then turned to me. I never wanted this. I knew what she meant. I didn't come here for money or property. Or a legacy, she said softly. I just came to help. I nodded. And you did more than you know. Her eyes filled, but she blinked the tears away. Then why does it feel like I'm being punished for it? I didn't have an answer. That night, Emily came back again. There was no knock, just the slow creak of the front door opening. The kind of sound that feels like a storm rolling in. Lisa was in the kitchen. Emily made a beeline straight for me. You don't see it, do you? She said, standing over me. She's isolating you. She's turned you against me. She's made you believe I'm the enemy. I looked up at her. You made yourself the enemy, Emily. Her face twisted. I am your daughter and I am your mother, I said quietly. A mother you've taken for granted your entire adult life. She spun toward the door, ready to leave, but then stopped in the hallway where Lisa stood, frozen. Their eyes met, and for a moment, I saw it clearly. Pure, unfiltered hate. It wasn't jealousy. It was fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of losing the story she'd told herself. Fear of no longer being able to see herself as the good daughter. I spoke before she could. If you keep attacking the people who love me, you won't just lose the inheritance. You'll lose me. She didn't respond. She just slammed the door behind her, hard, sharp, like a warning shot. The next morning, I called my lawyer again. I want everything documented, I told him. Every visit, every threat, every legal move she makes. Emily may have declared war, but I wasn't fighting with fists. I was fighting with clarity, with truth, with boundaries, long overdue ones. The cancer spread faster than anyone expected. By late summer, I was thinner than I'd ever been. My body felt like a collection of bones and bruises. My skin turned pale yellow from too much medication and too little nourishment. Simple things, bathing, brushing my hair, standing, became victories. Lisa never wavered. She adjusted everything around me without ever making me feel small. She treated me with the same dignity on my weakest days as she did when I could still walk to the mailbox on my own. We didn't talk much during that time, not because there was nothing left to say, but because so much already had been said. We'd reached a place where silence felt like comfort, not emptiness. The grandchildren came by less often. Emily stopped bringing them. Sometimes they came on their own, riding their bikes, knocking softly on the back door, sitting beside me on the porch without saying much. Their presence was enough. One afternoon, my youngest granddaughter slipped a drawing into my lap. It showed me and Lisa, both with big smiles. She'd written "My to Grandmas" in crayon. I couldn't stop the tears. Lisa saw it and froze. Then she knelt beside me and wrapped her arms around me without a word. That night, I cried harder than I had in months, not because I was afraid of dying, but because I had finally found what love felt like and I didn't want to leave it then. One Sunday morning, Emily showed up again. Unannounced, as always. But this time, something was different. Her makeup was minimal. Her clothes were simple. No designer bag. No sunglasses. Just her and a small, weathered envelope clutched in her hand. Lisa was in the backyard. Emily walked in and stood in front of me without speaking for what felt like a long time. Then she placed the envelope on the table. "What's this?" I asked, my voice rough. "A letter," she said. "From Dad, one I found after he died. I never told you about it." My hands shook as I picked it up. The handwriting was unmistakable. He'd written it to her years ago. In it, he admitted what I'd always known, that he'd been cruel, that I'd left to save myself, that I'd done the right thing. And he asked her to forgive me. Tears slid down my face as I finished reading. Emily stood there, her own eyes wet. "I blamed you because it was easier than blaming him," she said. "And then I just kept doing it. Even when I knew better." I looked up at her. "And now?" Her voice broke. "Now I know I failed you." The pain in her words was real, not dramatic, not performative. Just human. Lisa came back inside as the moment peaked. She paused in the doorway, unsure. Emily turned to her. "I was wrong about you," she said. "I let my pride and my fear run everything." Lisa nodded slowly, saying nothing. Then Emily turned back to me. "I don't expect anything," she whispered. "Not forgiveness. Not the house. Not a place back in your life. I had to say it. For the first time, I believed her. I reached for her hand. "I don't hate you, Emily," I said, "but I couldn't pretend we were the same anymore." She nodded. "I know." She left a few minutes later. No drama, no slammed doors. Just quiet, the kind of quiet that feels like the end of a very long, very painful chapter. Lisa sat beside me as the sun dipped lower behind the trees. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. "I'm tired," and I was, but not just from the cancer. I was tired of carrying the weight of unspoken truths. Tired of begging for love in places where it was rationed like currency. I'd finally said everything that needed to be said. I'd heard what I needed to hear. Forgiveness isn't a door swinging wide open. Sometimes it's just the soft click of a lock finally loosening. The day I truly let go wasn't loud. It was quiet. Almost ordinary. Sunlight poured through the kitchen window just right. That warm golden light that makes everything feel softer. Lisa was humming a tune I didn't recognize while slicing apples. The smell of cinnamon lingered in the air. She'd started baking again, saying it reminded her of simpler times. I sat wrapped in my favorite blanket in the armchair by the window, watching the trees sway in the breeze, like they'd been waiting for me to finally notice them. Emily came by that afternoon. She didn't announce herself. She didn't need to anymore. There was no makeup this time. No tension in her shoulders. Just her, holding a small tray with a cup of tea and a scone store-bought, but still warm. "I brought your favorite," she said softly. I smiled. "You remembered?" She set the tray down and sat across from me, folding her hands nervously in her lap. "Can I stay a while?" "You already are." We sat together for a long moment. No accusations. No digging up old wounds. Just two women, one older, one fully grown, sharing the same space. Her eyes were red-rimmed when she finally spoke. "I know things can't go back to how they were." "They shouldn't," I said gently. "But that doesn't mean they can't move forward." She nodded slowly. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." I took a sip of my tea. "You don't," I said honestly. "But I'm giving it anyway." A tear slipped down her cheek. "Why?" "Because forgiveness," I said, "isn't about freeing you. It's about freeing me." Lisa came in then and paused when she saw Emily. They looked at each other. And I held my breath. "I'm sorry," Emily said quietly. "For everything I said. For everything I tried to do." Lisa nodded, her face calm and unreadable. "Thank you," that was all. No hug, no grand gesture. Just acknowledgement, like to people who survived different storms and found themselves standing on the same ground for the first time. Emily stayed for dinner that night. She helped Lisa in the kitchen. They didn't talk much, but there was no tension, just a fragile new truce. After everyone left the room, I reached for the folder holding my updated will. I opened it one last time and reread everything, the names, the distributions, exactly as I'd chosen. I didn't change a thing, not out of spite, but because the decision had never been about punishment. It had always been about truth. Emily was no longer the center of my story. And that was okay. She was still part of it, just not the axis everything revolved around. My legacy wouldn't be money or property. It would be what I left behind in hearts, the grandchildren who would remember my laugh, not my silence. The woman who showed me kindness when the world turned cold. The version of myself who finally chose peace over obligation. That night, I wrote a letter. Not to Emily, not to Lisa. To myself. I wrote that I was proud of the woman who finally said enough. Proud of the grandmother who loved without conditions. Proud of the woman who stopped asking to be chosen and chose herself instead, I folded the letter, placed it in the drawer beside my bed, and lay down with the softest smile. This story didn't end in revenge. It ended in freedom. And after everything, that was more than enough. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.